Well, we appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Well, I'm going to jump around a little bit. Tom Pittman of the Lounge Lizards. I think most of you in here have heard the Lounge Lizards at some point in your life, and if you haven't, you need to get out there and hear them, because you don't really know Texas music unless you listen to the Austin Lounge Lizards. As those of you who do know the Lounge Lizards, you know that they are not afraid to skewer just about anyone or anything, and they always do it in a very, very clever way. And the great thing, I thought about this on the panel, is that Tom is the most deadpan member of the band up there. So I think it's perfectly ironic and suitable that he be part of this panel, because I've never heard him talk about the humor behind the band, and today we get a chance to do that. Tom, humor, and you guys are so adept at this. How is it safe always to use humor when we're dealing with serious issues? I mean, in many cases in a populist movement or a populist cause, it's born out of suffering, real human suffering. But sometimes humor can be a relief. But is it ever inappropriate? Is it always a good tool?
Well, for what we do, it's never inappropriate, because I guess there are things that there are places we have never gone. Like, people are asking us when David Koresh got burned out and the massacre. Well, when are you going to write a song about that? Well, I don't think we're going to. But there's humor is the best way to me. You say, is it ever inappropriate? I think it's always appropriate for us, if we've got a statement to make, to couch it in those terms. That's what we do best, and that's what people expect of us. If we tried to come out and pound somebody over the head over something, I think they would be very disappointed, and I think we'd be, that's not what we do. That's not what we do well. There's a time and a place for that, but that's not what people come to see us for. What I think we do best is to, sort of work out of the sense of irony. Find things that are out there that just seem so absurd, and just point out the absurdity about it. And unfortunately, on both sides of the political spectrum, there are a number of people that I call the irony impaired. I was on a fundraiser at KUT one time, a long time ago, and Cornell Hurd has a song called "It's All Lunch Meat to Me," and he's talking about all these exotic birds, the flamingos and the spotted owls, and it's all lunch meat to me. And I thought it was really cool, and I still do. But we got 2 phone calls. One from, one of the founders of SOS called and said he thought that was great. But we also got a call from the irony impaired, who said that such trash should not be on the air. And okay, there you have it. But not everybody gets irony. You do with it what you can. And but speaking strictly personally, I think when people come to us, that's what they're expecting. I mean, we've carved out a niche, and so it gives us a head up. We have played some bluegrass festivals where we kind of did not really want to go out to the CD table after the show. It was we don't play very many bluegrass festivals anymore, and probably never should have. But anyway, well, that's kind of where we. I don't know if that answered the question or not. I'm beginning to see that that's not really the point of this, is to answer the question. But anyway, humor is a medium, and I think for a lot of purposes, it's the best medium. I will say one more thing. About a year and a half ago, I discovered that the mute button on the remote control. So I decided that it might be okay to start watching television again after 35 years or whatever it was. They didn't even have a remote controls last time I was watching TV. Anyway, I've started watching the Daily Show and the Colbert, and Colbert is just solid wall-to-wall irony there. I just love that. But one of the Fox commentators was excoriating Jon Stewart he was saying, well, you ought to either just be a comedian and let it go at that, or if you want to be a social commentary or commenter, anyway, if you want to do social comment, you should do that. But well, you just can't do both. And Stuart was, what? What better way to do social comment? And I agree completely. That's you know, the other people have their ways of doing it, but that's what works for me. And when I want to see some social commentary, that's the way I enjoy it the best. Just to find, you know, take an argument and just point out the absurdity of it. Oh, I also want to thank Ben Sargent did a cover on one of our albums, and I want to thank you for that. We discovered years ago that the albums that we do that do not have our picture on the cover sell way better than the ones that do. So Ben's made us a lot of money that way by keeping us off the cover of the Small Minds album. Anyway.
Well, thank you, Tom. And speaking of Ben, I've been a big admirer of Ben's work for many, many years, long before I met him. In fact, I didn't meet you till today. But since Tom referred to you, I'm jumping around here, and I'll go to Ben next. And I agree that humor is one of the most effective ways, and that's one of the great things about Ben Sargent's work is there is always humor. There's that direct, strong impact, the statement that his work makes, but there is almost always humor in it. And what I want to ask you, Ben, and you can choose to answer this or not. Doesn't matter to me. So.
It's not relevant.
It seems to me that political cartoonists and the news media in general are barreling down this road toward more and more toward infotainment and away from more substantial stuff. And I believe that your work has always remained focused on substantial issues. You've done it with a good sense of humor, lighthearted and so on, but it's always been something relevant. It's not reaching for the lowest common denominator. And so there's obviously some real integrity there. Is there someone who was a role model to you or an inspiration for that?
Well, thank you, Gary, and thanks to Jim Hightower. Is that on? Oh, we're out of luck.
Here.
Can we get closer?
I don't think it's on.
I don't think it is.
Is there a switch?
Not that I can find.
The green light is on.
Got it? All right, now can you hear me? All right. Well, yeah, thank you for inviting me to this, and I know when Jim invited me and said I was going to be on a panel on populist culture, and I said, Jim, I don't even know what that is. Is that like is that like NASCAR? Is it is it Dancing with the Stars? I mean, is it the same as popular culture? And maybe that's partly because I'm still not, although I've been a devoted follower of Jim Hightower for many years, not exactly sure what populism is, because when you start thinking about it, it's everyone for the last 500 years has appropriated that word to mean what they're doing. Everybody from the Anabaptists and the levelers in the 16th century up through the teabaggers today, they all call themselves populists. So it's sort of a label that's gotten diluted. But if you're talking about, you know, if you want to talk about social equity and justice and just pursuing policies that give the most people the most opportunity to arrange their own lives and to take as much part as they can in our political and economic systems, then I guess I'm a populist. But you know, labels are loose and fuzzy. You asked me about people who had been influences on my thought, and you know, my number one thing in my 35 years of editorial cartooning, number one was filling that big hole every day on the editorial page. And if you know, some days it was, if I could just think of anything to put in there, I would have put it in there. But I saw myself on that editorial page as an opinion journalist, just like, you know, the guys that were writing columns, like Jim. And you forgot, when you were comparing your work and mine, you forgot about the 150,000 crosshatches, you know, that you didn't have to do. But in my trade, I know there's sort of two two currents of approaches in among political cartoonists, and one there are some, and there's some of them are very good cartoonists who see themselves as sort of the pictorial equivalent of a late night comic, and they see what the biggest headline is every day and do a joke about it, and a lot of them are very funny, and but there's no punch there, there's no message, and there's no reason really to be on an opinion page. So I've always sort of considered myself more of a crowd with cartoonists who think of themselves as doing something ideological and trying to advance a view, or trying to point out the ironies and the absurdities of things that are going on in the public arena. And people like that, friends of mine who I've admired very much, would include like Patrick Oliphant, Paul Conrad, Don Wright, and people who regard themselves first as opinion journalists, and they're trying to get across a point. And so I guess those were some of the, if not influences, at least people that I admired and sort of aligned what I was doing with.
Well, thanks, man. Well, cartoons, when they're done well, can pack a powerful punch, and obviously your track record in that is amazing. And it's the same. I'm gonna ask Alan now to comment, because I think there's a lot of similarity there. You're doing photography and documenting populism, populist culture in the world around us through photography. So in a sense, you're trying to capture that same single image that speaks volumes. And others, of course, before you, Russell Lee and others have done that. You fill some mighty big shoes. How do you think in your career, and again, you can answer this, or you can have any sort of response you want that you think is linked to populist culture, how do you think the process of all this has changed for you over the years? Or perhaps have you seen it change even before you began working as a professional to the present day?
Well, a lot has changed and remained the same. But as we all know, really, the internet has changed everything. YouTube and all these other sites you can go to. I remember I was asked to go to Iraq the first time in 1998. I got my first laptop. I got home from Iraq, I think it was July of '98. I had an email from some human rights group in South Africa wanting a picture from Iraq. Well, okay, I scanned that picture that would suit their purpose and emailed it back to them all the way to South Africa in an instant. Wow. I mean, you know, forget FedEx. Thank you, FedEx, for everything you do. But so it's everything is so fast, and everything is so accessible. If I mean, with internet searches, you can find out so much so quickly about anything. But there's an underlying current that is so subtle that a lot of people don't think about it, and that's the politics of aesthetics, the politics and the economics of aesthetics. When I got back from Vietnam, and that was a formative influence on my life, I started taking pictures as a combat medic and as a chaplain's assistant. So I didn't have any formal training in photography. I came back and I taught myself, and I started working with the Underground Press. But what was I doing? I was photographing gay liberation and women's liberation, black liberation. I spent the night with the Black Panthers in Oakland. Only white guy there, I tell you. It was different back when they were holding shotguns and up against the bunkers.